Frank J. Avella with The Contending. Kleber Mendonça Filho's extraordinary film, The Secret Agent, has been nominated for 4 Academy Awards, including Best Picture, International Feature, Lead Actor, Casting. I'm so pleased to be speaking with the writer-director today. Welcome, Kleber.
Thank you for having me. Great to be talking to you.
So, Kleber, how does it feel to get recognized in both film categories? This is only the second year in a row this has happened for Brazil, actually.
I think it's great because it literally puts a spotlight on the film. The film is still on release in Brazil, very wide release, actually. And it's been doing so well since November 6th when it opened. And now with the nominations, it has gone back to the top three uh, box office attractions in Brazil. It has become an unusual blockbuster, which is great. And uh, and I'm also happy to be part of a list of films I admire. And it's been a great ride, traveling with Wagner and Emily and working with Neon. It's been a really great experience.
Well, speaking to that, I felt that Secret Agent had a great deal in common with, well, on one level, with sentimental value. And that
Yeah.
is, I felt this intense appreciation for the film medium. Your love for cinema was
Yeah.
expressed in every frame.
Yeah, myself and Joaquin I can say that we are from the same generation. We grew up watching films. Well, like most filmmakers, I would guess, but I think coming from the same generation, it probably puts us in touch with. I was also talking with Eskil, the his great co-writer, co-screenwriter. Really, another really great guy and very talented. And I think when you make films, it's natural to look at film itself, cinema. And this is quite unavoidable for me. Uh, I think most of my films they show some appreciation for the past of movie making and I of course remember the many films that made me want to make films. So yes, when I saw sentimental value, it did feel like these are filmmakers from the same generation who come from very different cultures, but who are probably expressing their own connections to cinema itself.
In watching Secret Agent again, I've seen it 3 times now. I saw a lot of Altman and Lumet in the
Yes.
film. The scope for me was very Nashville.
I love Nashville, and I did sit down to watch Nashville twice when I was writing the script. I love the Panavision photography, widescreen. Um, I love the way Altman he manages something which I love in many of his films, from The Long Goodbye to MASH to Nashville, a wedding. He makes incredibly cinematic films, and I really think that widescreen Panavision is a wonderful tool for what he does. But it he also manages to make it look like it's like almost like running water. You just see water running, and it's so one the action moves from one character to the next, and from living room to the street to a kitchen to it just feels very fluent. It just flows very naturally, and this is something that I really love about his films. I I also thought a lot about Altman in the whole sequence in the registry office where you have so many characters and you have people walking around and moving about and there is something happening over there, but the point of view is always from Wagner's point of view. And there's a Kafkaesque aspect to that. and then of course the use of widescreen. So I think that was the sequence I thought most about, Altman and Nashville, I think. Yeah, I'm a great admirer.
Well, Kleber, can you speak a little bit about the process of building this intricate screenplay?
Probably the toughest screenwriting job that I ever gave myself. I think Pakula was also very tough, especially because I was writing with a good friend. So we had to please two.
Mm.
For the secret agent, I had to deal with my own satisfaction in terms of looking at the script. But the story was, I never had an outline for the story. I had a few ideas. I wanted the character to be a great classic hero, but without a gun. This is something that I always told Wagner. No guns for this character, no shooting anyone. I wanted him to be relatable, and I thought that Wagner's charisma would be just right for this. Um, and I had the starting point, which were two. The gas station, that was the first sequence I wanted to write, and I thought I knew where it was going. And I really wanted it to be in 1977 and to have the logic of history, the logic of 50 years ago, which would take us, of course, to the military regime. I was a little kid in the military regime. I have my own memories of the military regime. And and he would be this guy who would be persecuted for doing absolutely nothing wrong, which I think it's a good idea for a film that takes place at a time when democracy has broken down. You have done nothing wrong, and this is precisely why you're in trouble.
Yeah.
Uh, there are situations in a in an authoritarian state where you can actually fight, and you might, you know, get involved in a violent action. That is one thing, but this character, he did nothing wrong. And I really think it's a frightening starting point for the whole story, and it resonates quite strongly now that I've been, screening the film since May in so many countries, and of course in Brazil. It resonates very strongly. He has done nothing wrong, and this is why he's in trouble.
I think it resonates even stronger here right now in my
Oh yeah,
country,
yeah,
which is absolutely terrifying. When I spoke to Wagner, we talked about the two films that this and I'm Still Here being set in the dictatorship, and he mentioned you both met because of your shared activism. You were both quite vocal about Bolsonaro, and I think it takes
yeah.
tremendous courage to speak out.
Yeah, but sometimes you just said the word activism, which is fine and it's probably correct, but I never saw myself, I never saw myself as an activist. I never sat down or told a friend that my next film is going to be a political film. I don't see sometimes I get questions like, you want to run for politics? No. I think there are people more, better equipped than I am for, actual politics. But what happens is, like in our conversation right now, you ask me a question, and then I answer the question. So back in the pre-election days in 2018, somebody would ask me the question, so do you think Bolsonaro is an interesting possibility for Brazil? What would I say? What would I say? Yeah, gee, well, let's give the guy a chance. I could never say this. So I said, no, I don't think I think it would be a disaster.
But you
Uh,
do realize, though, that is not especially in this fear-driven culture we have, that is not the norm. Right now, everybody would pivot. I'm not saying everybody would, but many people would.
I always felt that I would be all right within what I think Brazil is as a democracy. Of course, I did get a lot of heat from, the conservative press and from social media and even from some people in government. But I never thought that it would be, like a note of suicide to say something like that. And, I said it and so many people said it. And then you have this whole group of artists and filmmakers who just say nothing. But
Yeah.
but then they say nothing. They don't even have an opinion about anything. Like, did you like that pizza? Silence.
Yeah.
So they would never make them their opinions known anyway. But myself and Wagner, it is true that it it does take a toll. When you express yourself and then it becomes a controversy. But I never saw any controversy in anything that I said. I have never expressed any desires of violence against anyone, even from the right. No, die motherfucker, nothing in that sense. Very respectful, but no, I don't think is a good possibility for Brazil. I think it would be a disaster. This is what I said. And then we followed a year by year, week by week narrative of one disaster after another. And finally, he lost the re-election and is now in jail. So, and I'm talking to you about a film which deals with social, political history.
Let that parallel happen here in my country, please, is all I have to say.
Yeah,
Uh,
it is a very serious moment, I think, right now.
yeah. Um, do you think that Baccarat being submitted for Oscars by Brazil, not being submitted, I should say, was because of possibly your political beliefs?
No, I don't. I don't think it was that situation. In fact, there was a new tweet around saying that because people are so excited and proud of what was happening with Secret Agent, and somebody said that Bacurau was boycotted. I don't think it was. It was in in my mind a wrong decision by the Brazilian Academy. But the thing is, they sent a strong film from that year, which was Karim Ainur's The Invisible Life. That's a strong film. Which of the two films by December became the prestigious Brazilian film that year? It was Bacurau.
Yes.
So I think there was the wrong strategy coming from the Brazilian Academy, but it didn't come from the Bolsonaro government. In 2016 with Aquarius, yes, that was a full-on boycott against Aquarius. And they chose the least known, the most mysterious, the most TV movie-like, a film they pulled out of their asses, I think. And that film went nowhere, of course. And that was a very clear act of sabotage, but not not against me, but against Brazilian cinema, because the Brazilian government should not get a waste an opportunity like that just out of spite, for someone who had denounced the incredible the horrible coup d'état which took place in May.
Mm.
The month they also shut down the Ministry of Culture. So it was basically when they took over government after the Dilma Rousseff impeachment, they brought all the worst people for the Temer government, and only people who hate Brazilian culture were weaponized to take part in the to now to be part of what was left of the Minister of Culture. So that's how that happened. So not for Bacurau and yes for Aquarius.
Well, well, I want to talk about casting this film. You're a master at assembling this great ensemble. Tanya Maria, in particular, I loved her so much. I'd like you to speak about how you go about casting a film like this.
Well, I work with people I share similar points of view on the world and on life. Gabriel Dominguez is the casting director. I also work with Leonardo Laca, who's a very good friend and is also a filmmaker, and he's a I call him almost like a consigliere. He's always we're always working together in the shooting. He's also works with the actors. Um, And Emily is also an important part of the process. And we get together, we look at faces, we look at videos. I have had for since my first film, Neighboring Sounds, this desire to present this canvas or this panorama of Brazilian society, which is a country which is so diverse. And that diversity for throughout its history never really translated into what we saw on television in Brazilian films. It has become a little better in the last 10 years, I think, with issues and attempts at improving the way we are represented. But but even now, I find it that some of the style is too industrial. Representation is there, but not in the way that we live our lives in the logic of Brazil. And since Neighboring Sounds, I thought that a lot of the truth in the image of the film comes from the people, the faces, the bodies, the characters, the actors. And I think that Bacurau was I had done that in Aquarius and Neighboring Sounds. I think it's all there. But in Bacurau, because we needed about 100 amazing people, I it became crystal clear for me that the line which separates actors from extras should never really exist. So actors and extras are actors, and many films treat extras as background objects, almost like art direction. And I think in Bacurau, the whole should be alive, and I believe it is. And that's when I found Tanya. She worked in Bacurau as an extra, but she was so amazing that we kept giving her new ideas and saying, um, maybe you can say this, and maybe you can be in that other scene. And then when I was writing the script for The Secret Agent, I couldn't stop thinking about her, and I ended up writing Sebastiana for her. And then it was a process of about a year, I think a little less, maybe 10 months, that we were working, Gabriel, Leo, and Emily, and myself, in looking for great faces for um, The Secret Agent. And I'm very happy with everything that has been happening since May in Cannes, with all the countries where I showed the film and all the strong reactions to the faces in the film. but now it's a really special moment because of the first act casting award and the nomination that we got. So last week something really beautiful happened. I just saw on my timeline maybe more than 30 actors giving interviews for the press all over Brazil. And this is incredible. And if you know Portuguese, the diversity of faces is also translated in the diversity of accents in the film. So it would be like a US film which has so many American faces and so many American accents.
It's amazing, and I'm from Italy, and it's very, very similar in that respect. There's so many different variations on the languages.
Yeah,
So, and Portuguese and Italian share a lot.
yeah, yeah, I agree.
So as a director, Kleber, how hands-on are you with the actors, and do you allow your script to be fluid?
Oh, as a director, I want only the best for each and every actor. And if that means changing or adapting the text, it's completely fine. He or she should. It's almost like if you buy a house, you love the house, but then you might need to make a few changes because it's going to be your house. So that's how I think it should be. But some elements of the text, I might believe that they have to be in the film. For this film, for example, uh, there are a number, a large number of words which belong to the past, and I was very specific about using them. So sometimes an actor would use something which I would find anachronic, something from 2025, and then I would say, no, for example, divorced. There was no divorce in Brazil in 77. We have to use the word desquitada, which is separated. So I was paying attention to those things, but he or she, they can just make it sound, just make it their own. And um, and I'm also happy that there was a wonderful review from the UK in June. It was still a reaction from Cannes. And this guy wrote that when there is the casting montage in the end of the film, he was he was astonished to realize that he could actually remember each and every character. It never happened that who's this guy? I can't remember this one. He remembered each and every character, and I think that's it's a great compliment.
It's striking, actually, yes. Um, I wanted to speak a little bit about memory because memory is a major theme in the film, and the idea of making sure the history of what a country does stays alive, but also keeping the memory of these people who were disappeared, who were killed.
Um, well, the discussion about memory is a constant in the film over since the film premiere. But I think over the last few months, I came to realize that the film is probably more about amnesia.
Hmm.
Uh, Maybe amnesia and memory they go hand in hand, but I I come from a country which has a very serious problem with memory archives, preservation. Of course, working with cinema, I know quite well the amazing and disheartening missing files and missing reels in film preservation in Brazil. Um, and I find that really disturbing. And this is something that I learned while in the 7 years I was working on the Pictures of Ghosts. Pictures of Ghosts was an interesting film because it never had a script, and the film was guided by my discoveries. So I would be looking for A, and then I would realize that nothing on A survived. But then I would find something on F, and I would go, oh, right, so let's have a look at F. And it's like, oh, this is wonderful. But now F is mentioning T. And then when I move over to T, there is the beginning of T, but no middle and no end. So that gave me an interesting training on the whole idea of missing pieces of information. Uh, and I think the film, the script, it seems to have the logic of missing pieces of information. You spend 2 hours and 25 minutes, living with Armando Marcelo, Wagner's character, and then suddenly you're told through the newspaper photograph that he died. And there is not a lot more information to tell you what exactly happened. When did he die? Who shot him? How many shots? Um, but that's how working with archives feels.
Yeah,
And
I
yeah,
just wanted to chime in. It's funny you're mentioning this because I had an argument just the other day with a cinephile friend of mine who felt cheated by that ending. And I said, no, I did the first time I saw the film too, but the second time I saw the film, I realized, no, that's the entire point. And to me, it's chilling.
yeah, it's interesting because so many cinephiles and so many people who love cinema, they do not uh, accept the logic of life applied to a film narrative. And I've been thinking about this ever since I wrote Neighboring Sounds, because in Neighboring Sounds, there's a similar idea. We have two characters, boy and girl. They kind of fall in love with each other, and they are a couple for some time in the film. And then towards the end of the film, the guy is in a family gathering. His cousin comes over and says, "Hey man, how's Sophia?" And then his cousin says, "We broke up." "You broke up?" "Yeah, we broke up." "Oh, I liked her." "Yeah, so did I." And then they move on and they talk about something else. And some people in the audience, they were like, "This is unacceptable." And I go, "But did you want to see the breakup scene? Haven't you ever asked a friend how so and so, and he or she just said or started crying? It happened to me once. This guy started crying in front of me. His face swelled up, and oh man, what a disaster! It had happened 2 weeks prior. So yeah, you ask about people, and then you learn, oh, but no, she moved to Australia. And we never saw the moment, she left for Australia. That's the logic of life. And
Absolutely.
and, and that's how Armando died. It's very cruel, but it comes from the archives. It's a piece of information.
And you're what you're doing is you're breaking that. We've been so brainwashed by the Hollywood narrative, and you're
Yeah.
subverting that in many ways, which I really appreciate.
Yeah, but it's ironic because a lot of what happens in this film and the way it was shot, it comes from so many great films I saw coming out of Hollywood. not everything.
So you began as a film journalist. How did you transition to filmmaking, and is it something you always wanted to do?
Yeah, I've always loved cinema and films since very early age, and I have always been good at writing, and I've always been very bad in math. And naturally, I moved towards writing English, Portuguese, history, literature. And then there were no film schools in Recife in the late 80s, so I went for journalism. And I loved the idea of being a journalist. I saw the romance of, working as a journalist, which I might even see that, although it's harder and harder, I think, to be a journalist um, in these days. And I also think it's more and more important for us to have good journalists these days. But then I did journalism. I really found myself, in journalism. And of course, I gravitated towards culture and cinema. And then I became a film critic. And it's something that I enjoyed doing for 13 years. Except that while I was being a film critic, I was also making my short films. And at some point, I had become quite well known as a film critic, and now I was becoming quite well known as a short filmmaker. And that's when finally decided to move and do my feature film, write my feature film. And the day we started pre-production, it was my last day as a film critic. So very interesting change of channel.
I love that. Kleber,
Yeah.
I thank you so much for taking the time out to speak with me. My final question to you, do you have any sense of what might be next?
Oh, one thing that keeps me, sane in a way because it's been a lot of traveling. It has never been unpleasant. I actually, I've been enjoying myself and doing quite well with all the things that we have to do to promote the film. But one thing that keeps me level-headed, I think, is thinking about April or May when I will finally start working on a new script. So this is something that I'm really looking forward to once, working with The Secret Agent is over.
The insanity of award season. Um,
Yeah.
well, I look forward to whatever it is you do next. I think that The Secret Agent would be great on a double bill with Pictures of Ghosts. I think you see Pictures of Ghosts first and then Secret Agent, and it's remarkable.
A wonderful Italian distributor, Minerva. They acquired Pictures of Ghosts, and they are screening Pictures of Ghosts all over Italy as a preparation for the release of Secret Agents.
It's perfect. Well, I
Yeah.
wish you all the best with what is coming up. Um, I won't say anything so as not to
Yeah.
jinx. And thank you for taking the time out and speaking with me.
Thank you very much, Frank.
Thank you.